After 15 days of brain wrecking, hair pulling work, I finally created a 2D Raycaster. At the start of the video, we went over the demo. Now let's go over everything I have learned during these last 15 days. Starting off with iterative development. What have I learned? It's nothing new to me, but it was fulfilling to see a large complex problem that I had no idea how to solve broken into smaller sub-problems that were solved, resulting in the larger, more complex problem being solved. Number two, back to the basics. I have not really used trigonometry in development. Soka Toa, it's been such a long time. I had a great time going back and refreshing my trigonometry knowledge. I previously used trig in earlier iterations of the raycast, where I was trying to cast out rays based on angles, and the intention was to consume a total of 360 degrees, which is one full rotation, which also refers to essentially creating a circle. I had done this for a few reasons, as just stated, to cast out rays, but also to position certain objects within the ray casting scene. And by ray casting scene, I just mean the window. I have no idea why I said that. Next, math, math, math. Okay, this is without a doubt the second hardest feature to implement with the Raycaster. I have a little background in linear algebra. I have been asked the question many times, do these two lines intersect? What is the intersection of these lines if they do intersect? Does this line exist in this plane? However, trying to wrap my head around collision detection between the ray and a segment, which I consider to be a wall in the game, was quite difficult to express in logic. After rummaging around through the various interwebs, I was able to find a method that helped me derive a solution. It took some tinkering, and especially due to the fact that the solution that I had found was written in a far more complex manner than I thought it needed to be. Number 4. There is no need for always object oriented programming. So obvious, but I often have to convince myself that there is no need to set up a class hierarchy to solve a problem, especially for programs that I want an early iteration of. The only class or object I am actually using are a line class, which I used for an earlier iteration to make storing the initial and terminal points of a line easier and for more convenient access. The second was a vector class, not the default C++ standard library vector. I just called mine vec, so VEC, that I used to store coordinates to make a lot of the math easier, especially since this is a 2D caster. I needed a small, or more accurately, I wanted a small container that only stored two values for a number of different lines, that being the x and y origin, the x and y terminal, and the x and y point of intersection, be it also the rays or the line segments that define all the objects in the window. And you can imagine that if you go back to the demo in the start, regardless of the shape being drawn, they all are drawn using line segments, where a triangle would be three line segments, a square would be four line segments, etc. So all I had to do was break up all of those various objects, including the walls of my window, into line segments to account for intersection. Number 5. Throw in the towel. I said this took me 15 days, which is true, working around 1 hour a day. But that's partly the truth. I decided to try to implement a shadow feature. My thought process was very simple. Introduce multiple light sources that are slightly offset from my central light source, the source that currently tracks the position of the mouse. So, what I considered was the following: one light source at the center, four light sources spread around it. I achieved this even spacing with trigonometry. This allowed me to add r as a constant, which is the radius, which is the amount I want displacement from the central light source. And then I use the cosine and sine functions, inputting radians, where radians refers to a conversion from degree to radians, and just multiply those values by r, where again r refers to total displacement from the center light. Then, using these additional light sources, I intended to cast out more light rays with a darker shade of white to apply the effects of shadows. If you would imagine, when light hits an object, it does not immediately stop. It tends to flutter out to the sides, above, maybe below, with a darker shade. Light also reduces in intensity as it travels. And after 15 days, while I did have this 2D Raycaster done, I spent another entire month. No working solution. No matter what I did, I got nowhere. Every step forward introduced a new bug. I was just lost. I do not want to look at the build anymore. I do intend to solve this at some point, but I'm not going back to it any time soon. Let me know your thoughts.